pop up, but it didn't. Anyway, I'm recording now, so that's
Okay,
great.
great. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, so just to recap what I just said, in case you're watching the recording, I was just kind of saying like, yes, everything you're saying makes total sense. And I think Facebook can still work for some ways, but I was a little bit worried when I looked at your overview that it was quite a heavy feature, and that maybe you would create some kind of dependence a little bit on that. And I think I really like your idea of being on LinkedIn more as well. That's something I've heard more people say, and I think for the kind of work that you're doing, that also makes sense. And I also really think that doing one platform really well is way better than being everywhere all the time. And one last piece I want to share, I feel like so what you just said in the beginning of like, I feel overwhelmed even as a consumer, like let alone a content creator. I think there's a real shift at the moment where we're going from bombarding people with information to creating a beautiful experience, which is much more valued. It's like, that doesn't mean that you don't have an important message to share, or that you shouldn't express yourself, but it's more about like, what is creating more value for a potential client or your future audience. Probably you doing something you really love, something that's easy for them to explore, something that feels really good, rather than committing yourself to posting on Instagram every day, for example. Yeah,
that is a huge gem. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That makes me feel a lot better as well, because I'd be much more, because I would like to do some cartoons actually.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah. And I just, like, and it's just like, I would be so happy just sitting at my desk with a piece of paper, drawing a cartoon that I can scan in, rather than me having to bombard people.
Yeah, I love that you're bringing that up. I started writing zines again this summer, and I am sharing them with everyone on my newsletter list. And part of me is, of course, like, oh, no one on Instagram knows about them now. But that feels so nice, like dropping into the quiet of the space that you create for yourself, that really works for you, where you can create something meaningful. And I just want to hold this vision that people will engage with this comic and share it around in a way that's more impactful than you being on Facebook if you don't want to be on there could be. And I'll give you one more example. I know we have lots to cover, so I don't want to bore you with this, but I'm thinking about training as a death doula as a side note, and I searched around a little bit for other people doing this kind of work. And I found someone last week who has the most basic website. It doesn't even have any color. And she just has this like really lovely hand-drawn logo. And then she has very minimal text. She's just like, hey, this is why I train. This is what I'm doing. Here's how you can book a session. And then she's not on any social media, but she has 5 YouTube videos up. And you can kind of get a sense for who she is and how she talks and what she cares about by watching them. And I obsessively watched them, researched anything that I could find about her, and immediately booked a session. And I didn't need 200 posts on Facebook or something. I just needed to know who she is and why she does this work. And I needed to feel like that she was excited about what she's sharing. And it just reminded me that like even like the bells and whistles and like branding and all of that, I think it's way more important to stay with, who you truly are and what you have to do and want to do in the world. So that was a real eye-opener for me, last week.
But what's her website name? Would you mind if I looked at it?
Yeah, of course. I will put it in
I'll become a fan as well.
Yeah, 1 second. So where's the chat box? There you go. It's Steady Waves EOL.
Great. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Cool. So what do you think we should do?
Yeah, I mean, in life, in business, what should we do with commission?
The big questions.
Yeah, I could share my screen and we could look at your map together, and then we can kind of like talk through some ideas and options. Hang on. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, like I said, most of that really makes sense. I know that you have a few technical notes in here, so I'm understanding, for example, that you're trying to decide whether you're going to switch to WordPress, and if so, what theme you're going to use, and you've mapped out that you want to change email providers. So I'm wondering if you maybe want to start by kind of like bringing the biggest tech questions to the forefront to make a decision, and then we can go a little bit more into the strategy and seeing how the focus from Facebook could shift into other things.
Yeah, sure. So obviously the top part of the diagram is more to do with the marketing, and then the bottom is more to do with the sales, and then actually being involved in my products and services. I suppose in terms of my overall direction, the things although I am a coach, and the main thing I'm offering at the moment is one-to-one coaching. In terms of my future plan, the one-to-one coaching is going to be a much smaller part of what I offer. And the big and important things for me that will most feed me in turn are being able to offer people the face-to-face work, and then the online courses as well. And some of those will be group style ones done using Zoom, whereas but at the same time I want to create a passive income stream as well, where people can follow a self-study online course. And so I suppose really the website actually doesn't actually have to be super complex, and what you described about the early website that inspired you. I mean, I think something like that actually would really work well for me. And I've just recently I've now been starting to pay attention to the idea of landing pages, because I think, in terms, just to give you a bit more context of what I offer, what my work is mostly to do with conscious relationships. And so it involves kind of authentic relating in one sense, but more widely kind of learning and discussions and education around emotional intelligence, but as well as offering it to the general public, if you like, even though I do have a target audience in mind. I also want to offer it to leaders as well. So I want to be offering conscious leadership training to people in business. In some ways, the business world's kind of taken stuff from the spiritual realm and brought it over to business, and there have been some really interesting models and methodologies that have been created as a result. I kind of want to take it then back, to communities and to charities and third sector organizations, as well as everyday people, if you like, who want to be involved in doing conscious relating, authentic relating. But I guess what I'm trying to do is, of course, it's really important that I have a target audience, but I want to try and create something that can be as applicable to the business world as it is to the non-business world, if you like. So I want to create a website that's quite simple, but then there will be lots of landing pages that can funnel, different types of audience in different directions. To not my starting point really, because obviously there's a lot here, and it's going to take time, very much time, to build all of this. My starting point really is just to get out into the world, delivering workshops and presentations for people through funding or my own Eventbrite advertising or whatever. And so I guess my first stage in this development is rewriting my messaging, creating my website, building up stuff on LinkedIn rather than Facebook, getting out into the world, delivering face-to-face work. So I start to build up the email list that way. And so therefore also having something content-wise to keep these people I've email listed as members in the loop, so with a newsletter or whatever. And then I guess after that, that's when I'll be really needing to work on developing the online courses, and then I'll need more of a CRM in place. But that's kind of how I feel it going at the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for mapping that out a little bit more. I think what you're saying about like wanting to speak a pretty diverse audience totally makes sense. I don't think that you necessarily need to define like just one specific person. But
Mhm.
still, what many people find useful is to do like some exercises around your ideal client avatar. So traditionally that would be like imagining this one person that you're speaking to and thinking about their age range and challenges and like what their day looks like and what they would reach out for, and thinking about whether they even have problem awareness. I think that's like quite good and important, and it really informs how you're spelling your message out, because if someone is not aware that they need you, they need to be spoken to differently than if they are.
Mhm.
um, but I think you could also create two or three. Like maybe it would be useful for you to think about, okay, like a private person who's just kind of maybe having some low level sense that more conscious relating in their life would make them happier, and would address a lot of different issues, like from work to romance and, you know, like anything, the health.
Mhm.
This is this is maybe what would get them excited, and then to create another ICA that's maybe within an organization, thinking about what kind of organization that is, how big, what their work day looks like, and how, like, what they're excited about, and how you can make them aware that maybe something that is outside of the usual kind of training or courses that they do could be really helpful for them. I think that
Mhm.
that might be cool. I would just offer
Mhm.
that as something to explore. Um,
Okay.
and I like the idea of several landing pages as well. I think that really speaks to what you described earlier, that there's a sense of overwhelm, and actually it's really good to create a beautiful experience for someone rather than just to overwhelm them with everything that you know
Mhm.
about something.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think when we're excited about something that's so tempting, like I do that all the time, to just be like, hey, here is everything I know about this thing, and this is how it's going to help you. But I think a good landing page just kind of engages someone and gets them excited and gives them a really tangible next step. So
Mhm.
that sounds great.
Okay.
I wonder, do you want to talk at all in detail about WordPress and themes, and whether, like, how that goes to play with landing pages? And I don't know, Tutano Noah, which the email provider that you listed, but if you have like specific questions about the different options and the kind of functionality that you would like to have from that, then I would love to hear.
Um, yeah, I think that I I don't know if I know enough right now to say what I need.
Okay.
I suppose in all honesty, I would like to, because I will be building it myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to use a theme that has a, you know, like a graphic user interface that actually makes building the site relatively easy, and it's
Yeah.
really easy to modify later.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard of Elementor, for example, that's kind of cropped up a few times, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that I tend to rebuild my website once a year, and so I'm more than happy for this to just be something that lasts a year.
Yeah.
So if you've got any advice on me just having something to get me going.
Yeah. Sure. So some people invest in lead pages because it's a good way to very quickly duplicate landing pages, and it integrates a few features or functionalities that are otherwise kind of like adding a little bit of complexity. So, for example, if you ran a Facebook ad campaign and you had a lead page, it'd be very easy to see what your actual conversion rate is.
Okay.
But I think it's not worth the investment. I'm just kind of naming it because people who are into landing pages often come across that first.
Okay.
They have a lot of good templates, so they do a lot of like really big scale testing on what is currently working and what's trending. And
Mhm.
so what might be useful actually is to just sign up for a free trial with them and see what kind of templates are popular with them right now, and then to copy some of the features that you like about them. But I wouldn't kind of go for like the big thing.
Okay.
And then in terms of WordPress themes, I exclusively work with Divi, which is the biggest on the market. I really love them. They cost about 100 a year, I think. However, if you're not invested in having your own license, I could give you mine, because I have a developer's license. I can install it on as many WordPress sites as I like. So you would just have to install WordPress on your own host, and I would then log in and kind of upload Divi for you. That's really not a big deal. You can still update the theme. It's just that if you have questions, you would have to go through me. But they have really good documentation, so you might not even run into necessarily any questions. But have a think about that. I think with the theme, it's really like, what is the easiest and most fun for you to work with? And I would look out for a theme that has a visual builder so that you can kind of work on the side and move things around. And it's really more like a drag and drop builder than something that you need to build from scratch. Divi also comes with a ton, like hundreds of templates. I don't tend to use them because I really just love building things from scratch. But they have really good landing pages that you can use as a starting point, and then you can just customize them. In terms of newsletter provider, I would recommend looking into MailerLite. That's what I use now. They are free for up to 1,000 subscribers, and they offer customer care even on the free plan. And so, like MailChimp, for example, doesn't do that. If you don't pay and you have a question, they're like not going to talk to you. But MailerLite is visually really cool. It also has a drag and drop builder, so you can easily create like a header and a footer and all your links. You can embed videos and audio and all that kind of stuff. And they give you good tracking and very easily letting you segment and integrate your audience. So as you start promoting, say, your 5-day mini course, you will want to see which people have already gone through that, and then which of those have bought your self-study. And then or you want to see which people have been in one-on-one coaching with you, and do you want to offer them like a discount for the self-study course and to extend their time with you. Then you need to see clearly who's been in which of the different aspects of your business already and what they have paid. And I think MailerLite is just like really easy to oversee, and it makes it just very simple to kind of group people in different ways. And it's free up to 1,000, so that's good. And they also integrate with a lot of course software. So I don't know how interested you are in talking about or thinking about course delivery and the software of that right now. But if you Google MailerLite integration, it will give you like a really long list of things that it automatically integrates with that might be interesting for you to look at.
Yeah. Some of these are the sorts of tips I'm really keen on hearing from you, because obviously I have been online and I have been researching different platforms, and but then it becomes difficult to know if one really is much better than another, or
totally.
and also about the integration as well, because different platforms offer so many different things. You can end up doubling up on things that you don't need, or there'll be a gap in your overall system as a result if you're not careful. So that's really good to know.
Yeah, totally. In that case, I have a few more thoughts on this if you wanted to hear them. So your listing here, where was this also? Like, things I do manually at the moment. It's like respond to client emails, arrange discovery calls, send reminders, onboarding, offboarding. I have just switched to a platform that's called Dubsado, and they replace my scheduling, which used to be on Acuity, and then they replace my PayPal invoicing. They replace my contracts. They also do my bookkeeping, and they offer me forms. So I used to have paper forms where, I don't know if you remember, but whenever I did like a survey or something, that was in paper form. And then I had a Qt kind of linked to my Google Calendar to book people into calls. I didn't have a system for contracts, I'm ashamed to admit. And then invoicing I was doing through PayPal, and what else? Bookkeeping I had on QuickBooks. And so Dubsado isn't cheap. It costs $35 a month, but it's still a lot less than having all these different systems in different places. And what I love about it is that just like everything comes out of the same source, like, so
Mm,
if for example someone books a discovery call, they automatically have to fill in this little form that's like, hey, what do you want to talk about, do you already have a website? And then I don't have to email someone before the call and be like, hey, thanks for booking, can you tell me a little bit more? That's
mm,
one step that's gone. And then after the call, if they decide for a specific package with me, I basically just press a particular button in Dubsado, and it sends them the contract, the invoice, and the book to the link to book the next call with me. So there's basically onboarding and offboarding wise almost nothing that I have to do anymore. At
okay.
the end, they receive another form that's like, hey, how has it been working with me? Do you have any more questions? La la la.
Mhm, mhm.
And I think that doesn't mean that it's less personal. It just means I have more time actually to personalize things for people and offer them great service. But like I said, like $35 is an investment. But before you set up a system, say before you start with Acuity and QuickBooks and use PayPal for invoices, I would really consider whether it might make sense, if you need that functionality, to have it all in one.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and. Mm, what did I? Oh yeah. So with core software, there's a really annoying thing that we all have to consider now, which is that if you are offering a completely self-study program, you technically need to think about VAT and charging that for people buying from Europe. So this is something that came into legislation, I think 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
And it basically means that when someone buys something from you that's a purely a digital product, like a, I don't know, like, like a series of videos or a PDF or something like that, you need to track where this person is buying it. And if they are in an EU country, you need to charge the appropriate amount of VAT and then pass that on to that particular country. So that's technically almost impossible for anyone in our position to do, which
Mhm.
is why most of us choose to work with a platform that takes care of VAT. So Teachable, for example, which I used to use before I went to Mighty Networks, is great for that. Like, you can upload any kind of content, can be audios or PDFs or videos, and you can set your base price, and then they will do all this like software stuff of like figuring out where this person is coming from and then charging appropriate VAT. And they also take care of like passing the VAT on, so they're just paying you the base price that you've set, and you don't have to worry about that anymore. Something that people sometimes do as a workaround is that they have a Facebook group, and then if someone buys a digital product, this person also gets access to the Facebook group, which is kind of like a cheeky way of pretending like there is a personal component to your digital product. But I think like I wouldn't advise that, because I'm not really sure like how legally bulletproof that is, and I wouldn't, I think there's something that feels off if you are having too complex workaround solutions. And the other thing is also it's not a good look to have an empty inactive Facebook group that you're selling as part of what you're offering, when actually you're not intending to really build community in there or spend significant time there answering people's questions.
Okay.
So yeah.
So that's not so much of a problem for you now because of all of the personal contact you're giving through Mighty Networks. Is that right?
So Mighty Networks does charge VAT in some cases,
Right.
as does Patreon, where I'm collecting payments from people who want to be in those communities. So I do actually charge VAT, but I'm not handling it myself.
Okay. Okay. But do you not still have to by law?
No, I wouldn't have to. No,
Right.
I mean I do, because that's part of Mighty Networks and Patreon now.
Right.
So Patreon, for example, does charge VAT within the EU, because there is no way for us to prove to them that what people are getting in return is actually a personal service. In my
Right.
case, it is, but I can't prove that. And so I am charging VAT, and they are taking care of that. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. And obviously, just a moment ago, you were saying about the sort of lead tracking element within
Mm-hmm.
MailerLite, which sounds like really amazing and just what I need.
Yeah.
Is it then possible to integrate that with Dubsado, for example, so you can follow that, or would you just go into MailerLite to track that?
Oh, so you're asking specifically about MailerLite and Dubsado, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because is because as a CRM, Dubsado
Mhm.
is intending to also track your customer's journey. Is that right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes.
so would it integrate with the information that MailerLite is providing about
Mhm.
customer engagement,
Um,
or would that just not even be necessary?
I haven't needed that, so therefore I'm not 100% sure. So
Yeah.
in my case, if someone books a call, um, they don't necessarily have subscribed for my newsletter list already, so they wouldn't be in MailerLite yet.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they are, sometimes not. Um, and when they buy something or they become a one-on-one client, I'll just tag them in MailerLite. But I think for me, like my audience is are kind of like more separated into people that follow my work and have bought courses or in my program, and that is all integrated into MailerLite through Mighty Networks and Patreon. And then there's the people that work with me one on one, and I need to track them in Dubsado as a more like CRM in a more CM based way, yeah. But I don't have MailerLite and Dubsado talk to each other at the moment, but I
Mhm.
also don't feel like I would need that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool, cool. And also, I mean, a friend, I did actually, I have looked at Dubsado very briefly just
Mm-hmm.
after a friend mentioned it, and um, but she also mentioned the free version of HubSpot, the
Mm,
HubSpot CRM. I mean, I don't know if you've had any experience of that in
yeah.
no,
No, I think when I switched, I needed functionality that I knew wasn't going to be free. So
yeah,
I need this integration with my calendar, for example, because I really don't want to email back and forth about timing and time zones as well. And so lots of other stuff that I knew was never going to be free. So I didn't look into that. Yeah.
okay, cool, cool. That's really good to hear. Cool. Well, Dubsado is on the list for further research for sure.
Cool.
um, so yeah, so we've covered quite a few of the key points on here already. I was wondering, just to sort of go back to the Facebook thing.
Hmm.
So have you had any experience of using LinkedIn in any kind of way? Um,
Yeah. I have a profile on there, and that has grown at a time when I was still in employment. So most of my contacts are from people that I've worked with when I was working in e-commerce companies. And I just don't feel like connected to that time in my life anymore now. So I do sometimes show up like a few times a year or something. I haven't shared anything in ages, and I think I wouldn't rule out that my kind of people would be on there. But like I said, I think for me it kind of comes back to doing a few spaces really well rather than being in too many of them.
yeah.
Um, and so LinkedIn just hasn't spoken to me in that way. But I really definitely know and hear from lots of people making really good experiences there and feeling that it's worthwhile. And I think that's about like really thinking about your profile and making it searchable. So I actually have been approached by some headhunters a couple of times a year where they maybe didn't really read my profile and didn't see that I was self-employed for ages and probably wouldn't want to work for someone else again. But um, yeah, like making it searchable and then joining some groups that are relevant to your interest and sharing articles and like just really showing up, trying to offer support and solutions, I think that could be really good and powerful.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Okay, cool, cool. Would you say that just looking at my overall diagram, do you see anything in there that's missing?
Oh, yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Um, so I love that you're having so many streams point to your email list because, as we talked about, I think this aspect of really building independent media that you own, that no one can take away from you, is
Mhm,
really good. And whichever social media platform you're choosing to engage with, whether that's LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, the main purpose will be to get people on your list just from a like practical point of view.
mhm,
So I think that's great. I also love this connection between like the one-on-one coaching and the group call or the self-study option to kind of really see them as an extension of each other. So some people will be in your self-study first because they're on a budget, but they want to learn and they're kind of independent. And then maybe later on, as they see the value of this work for themselves, they will maybe say like, yeah, actually, I want some more one-on-one support around that. Or people who have worked with you one-on-one will maybe come to the end of that container and agreement, but still want to kind of stay connected with your work and then do a self-study program. So I really like that it can go both ways. With your email campaign, that also makes sense to me. I would maybe on a separate sheet flesh that out a little bit more to get really clear like what your structures around newsletters are. And it doesn't mean that you have to commit to anything specific timing wise. That's not something I do myself. But I think maybe to I think the problem that I'm trying to address is like many people say, okay, I'm building my newsletter list and I'm going to email once a month, but they're not even clear on what they want to talk about and they don't have a structure within their newsletter. So mine has changed quite a bit this year, but I have specific sections in each newsletter. There's always like an introduction where I'm sharing where I'm at right now, like what I'm excited about, what's happening, something seasonal. And then I'm going into a project that I'm currently working on. Then I'm sharing my latest episodes. And then I'm sharing how people can work with me. And then I sometimes have a section that's like what I'm currently reading and listening to. And that means that I don't suddenly like 3 weeks have passed and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't sent a newsletter in ages. Like, I don't even know where to start. Nothing has happened right now that I feel excited to share about. And then you kind of feel a little bit stuck. And then sometimes for people, this anxiety builds up and they're like, oh, now it's been 6 weeks and I still haven't emailed. So I think creating a template or thinking about the structure of what you want to share might be useful. And then this is not so much related to the flow of these things here, but the other thing that feels really always super helpful for people is to really batch things. So my journey with batching, it sounds a bit silly, but it's like in the beginning, I was just saying, okay, I will once a week write out all my Instagram posts, or like once a month I will write my newsletter, or once a week I have blocked a specific period of time to do some podcast interviews. And I've now taken that even further in that I have, when I do a launch or when I anything really, I make a long list of all the different tasks, and then I separated them into 3 different categories. The first is creative, the second is admin, and the third one is outreach or engagement, because for me those are like different headspaces that I need to be in. So my goal is to not go in and out of these different headspaces several times a day, because I think that takes a lot of energy and time management skills and organization. So when it's Monday, like Monday morning, usually I start really slowly because I'm not a morning person. I'm like, oh, and so I will like, go for a walk with my dog, have breakfast, do some movement, whatever. And when I do start working, my first thing is usually like getting an overview of the week. And then I very gently begin with admin tasks. So I don't just like badge my time, I also badge my energy. And I will make sure that I do the creative writing or the things that kind of like are more expansive and creating at times where I really feel like I am in that headspace. And then I have a long list. I organize myself in just a simple Excel sheet with different colors. Like some people use Asana. I don't think that's necessary. I love Excel. But I just like whenever I have time and I feel not kind of switched on or well rested enough to do something creative, I just knock things off my admin list and batch it that way. And when I feel like I have social energy and I feel like I want to connect, then I will knock things off my social and engagement list. And something that I've been starting to do this year is sending out bonjoros, which I really like. So these are the little videos where actually I can show that to you really quickly if you want to see it. Basically, whenever someone signs up for my newsletter, I'm trying to send them a personal video message that, to be honest, hasn't worked yet. So I have a big backlog because I've been traveling back to Brighton the last 2 weeks. But in theory, I would just kind of, it gives me this list and I start recording here. And then here I have different templates. So for a new Daydream Rose subscriber, for example, there's a specific thing it will say here in the message along, but the message is personalized. So I'll address that person and say like, "Hey Shay, thank you so much for signing up for my newsletter. I'm really glad you're here. You received this free thing. I'm wondering how you're doing with it. If you have any questions, if you want to book a free call, this is how you can do that." So this video message will link straight to the booking link as well for the free call, depending on what kind of person they are. But then also, if someone does join like a free trial in the DIY business community, or if they are becoming a patron, that I then also send them videos, and I'm like, "Hey, thank you so much for doing that. I hope you'll enjoy. This is how you can take your first steps." And it's really about like making people feel personally appreciated and seen, and also understanding what their questions are, because I had quite a bit of dropout from people, say, that have maybe become a patron for 1 month, or they've joined the DIY Business Collective, and I could tell that they hadn't even shown up to a group coaching call or a workshop or any of those things, but they dropped out right away. And I think that's understandable, and that is also coming back to what we spoke about in the beginning, is that people are so overwhelmed, and if they're not really, really clear on how to make the most of what you're offering, they will just go. And I think so, like, this personal thing, the personal component here, and inviting people to ask questions is, on a personal level, just feels nice, and on a purely business number level, it will increase your retention rate, which is also good.
I was actually quite curious about how you're working to retain your members and clients, as it were, especially now, especially now that Mighty Networks is your focal hub. Because obviously, yeah, I mean, from my point of view as a coach, at least right now, just offering one-to-one coaching. One-to-one coaching is, generally speaking, something that someone might just use once, and then after that, it's kind of goodbye to some degree. And even if they've had the most amazing experience ever, it could be that chances are, it's, because of the cost, and it's unlikely that they'll return unless they really need to. And of course, I know that a huge part of your mission is to make your offer, your products and your services affordable to people. And so the membership platform is perfect for that. But of course, in turn, there's always got to be something new for them to engage with.
So I think at the moment it really kind of comes back to the intimacy and connection of the group. So I think the first year I was really underpricing what I'm offering in some way. So I don't know if you remember, but so anyway, sorry, I will go one step further even. So the David Rose podcast is 3.5 years old now, and I think the DIY business one is 1.5 years old. And I had been on Instagram for about 4 years, getting to about 6,500 followers. And in the first year of running both the Magic program and the business community, they were incredibly cheap. So the Magic one was $3, and then the business one was $11. And that meant that I had a really solid group of people that were already in the group, and there was like movement and engagement, so that I was now able to increase the price a little bit to $22, and I'm gonna offer sliding scales around that, which isn't live yet. But now I have about 75 people are in the business community, and I think about 60 or so are in the other one, which means that for me, I can justify spending so much more presence and energy on Mighty Networks for both of these communities. And I'm really seeing that the people that are most engaged and get most of the program and stay the longest are the people that come for live calls, because there's so much I can record. Like the core of the business community is still this really big video course where I'm sharing my screen. I have these like dozens and dozens of recordings about really literally anything that could come up in your business, from like how to send up your newsletter opt-in to how to think about pricing, self-care for entrepreneurs, la la la. But I think, like you correctly identified, we're so overwhelmed, and I think it isn't often that we actually need more information to do the things that we want to do. I think what people actually really need is like the container that holds them accountable and to be with other like-minded people. So starting in September, I offered one group coaching call a month for the community, one live workshop, and then each Monday we have like an accountability check-in where people say what they're aiming to achieve that week, and then on Friday we're checking in on whether that's actually happened. And so I think, I mean, I don't know for sure because that's not something that Mighty Networks tracks. I don't think that people are massively obsessed about the course itself. I think they are really just wanting to be with other people. And I think each time I'm running a workshop, I see more and more people um, becoming courageous enough to share what's going on for them. So last week, for example, we had one on pricing and accessibility and boundaries. And we could have gone on for easily 2 more hours, but we basically just shared about how difficult it is to come to a pricing model that feels good and accessible and boundaried and that feels like, you know, sustainable for everyone involved. And the magic in that was not me telling people how to do it. The magic was like coming together and seeing that everyone is struggling with this and talking about possible solutions. So I really trust that the people that come to these live events will be around for a long time. You know, there's always people leaving and people closing down businesses, and that's cool. I'm definitely not seeing so much growth anymore. So loud that I've left social media like 6 weeks ago, I think. There is a bit of a slump in like new patrons and new people on my newsletter list. But I am just again kind of getting into a new rhythm with podcasting after the summer, and I'm seeing that every time a new episode comes out, there's much more excitement for what I'm offering, like more new signups. And so yeah, I think there's definitely a slump after leaving social media, but I want to trust that the things I'm making are much more better, are just much better now. They have more of my headspace and attention in them, and that that's more important than being on Instagram.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're now actually genuinely able to serve
Yeah.
your members.
Yeah. So I feel like with these live coaching calls, for example, like it is scary in a way to do like this open group coaching. It's basically just like an hour, anyone can come and anyone can ask anything. And it means like I really have no way of preparing. I don't know who's going to be there and where they're at and what kind of questions they have. So I really need to trust, like I've done this before. I have answered these questions many times. And we also can like talk to each other as a group. And that's not something, or like I feel better able to do that now that I'm not on social media anymore. Yeah.
Okay. And how much time, how many hours a week do you spend just attending to the questions on the
Mm-hmm.
the forums or the
Mm-hmm.
messages within your community?
I would say just like messaging probably an hour. And it's not just questions, like sometimes I'm also sharing resources that I've come across or we just talk to each other. So I'm really trying to kind of like create an atmosphere where I'm not the expert answering everything, but we're all kind of, I'm being paid to facilitate this and to share what I know, but I'm not the teacher or, you know, like I'm trying to be questioning the hierarchy as much as possible, which I know is never, it's never going to be perfect anarchy, obviously, but I'm trying to kind of get that spirit in. And then I spend about, in the business community, about 2 to 3 hours each month in calls. And then there's a little bit of admin, like maybe another hour or so each month is admin around like setting the events up and sending out emails to remind people about what's coming up and what they can attend, that kind of stuff. So maybe like 7 to 8 hours a month, I would say. 7 to 10 maybe, yeah.
Okay. So when the first community you spoke about, that's the magic community.
Mm-hmm.
Is it one when you said 1 hour? That's 1 hour a week or a day?
No, that would be both
Oh,
communities, just
together.
generally because they're both on Mighty Network. So I spend about an hour a week combined, like not at once. It's probably more like 4 times 15 minutes or something like that.
Okay.
In both communities, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's really minimal.
I mean, timing wise, yes, but it's more like energetically, like how am I showing up for people? You know, like sometimes I record a quick video, or, you know, like I will really, when someone asks me about pricing, I will really look at their website and see where they're at and like see how it comes across for me. And I'm also very frequently on there. So no one ever has to wait more than 2 days for an answer from me because I'm in there Monday to Friday almost every day.
Got you.
Yeah, and people, like I said, at this size now, people also talk to each other, which is really important. So what I really love is like when I open the network, at any point in the day or night, there's always other people online, and there's a sense of like these people have committed to a specific kind of work and environment, and so they have stuff in common. And I think that excites people about being more interactive with each other rather than just like waiting for me to record them a new thing or something. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Wow, well, that's really, really good to hear. Let me just look at my other questions quickly. Oh yeah, this is a slightly different question, but I heard on the grapevine that when a content scheduler is used, such as MailerLite, that well, I've heard at least Facebook can penalize the reach that is made if it's not something that's being posted live by you. I don't know if you've heard anything about that, or if it's true, if it's something that is also used, if this sort of penalization is also used by other platforms like LinkedIn elsewhere.
That's a good question. I have heard also that Facebook penalizes cross-posting. So I had an automation where every time I was posting something on Instagram, it went straight to Facebook, to my Facebook page.
Yeah.
And I did hear also that that was penalized. But like I think I had on one of them like 1,200 likes. And even though I did really post on there, my engagement was already so low, like a tiny fraction of those 1,200 people were seeing it. So for me, it was hard to say, like, was there really a difference between the cross-posted stuff and the stuff that I posted myself? I do know that a live generally will be the opposite of penalized. So like any live content or video stuff is usually getting more reach on. I don't know what it's like on LinkedIn. And I do know that on Instagram, that's definitely not a thing, because if you use later.com, it will still go kind of through your phone through the Instagram ad at the end. So later.com cannot actually directly post to your Instagram. It will be on your phone connected to your Instagram account. So I think that Instagram doesn't actually really know if something is automated or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I know I asked you this question before, but is there? We kind of spoke about things that could be missing. There aren't any technical elements missing in my structure here, are there? Or is there anything that would you, if you were to, or another question might be, if you were to design this, would you have structured it differently?
Not a ton. So like at the top right, I would have a lot less emphasis on Facebook and more on other platforms, and LinkedIn, yes, but also kind of independent media. So I would maybe even think about, like, if comics are really what you're super excited about, would be a way to really spread them out. So like, how do you have a system in place to scan them, and could you maybe put them into a little booklet like a zine, and give that away as a free download? Or maybe even like I have printed I've done like a really small print run of little zines that I made of 50, and so I'm now sending them out to people that have recently become patrons or that have worked with me one-on-one, or it's something that you could give someone at a live event rather than a business card. So I think like I would maybe utilize offline stuff that you're creating some more and weave that into this plan. I don't see like necessarily a piece of software missing here. So it does sound to me like you need a really good newsletter provider. You need to look at your website and think about the easiest way to create good landing pages. And you will need a booking system. And I think your decision to make really is whether Dubsado is what you want, if that's an investment worth making, or if you maybe just want to have a QD for now and do everything else manually. And then in terms of like delivering the courses, it sounds to me as because you are keen on like offline events and building community and like getting more sense of retaining people in your work, that Mighty Networks could be good. And they have a free plan. It's a bit sneaky. So when you go to mightynetworks.com, it will give you like the pricing tables, the cheapest being 12, but actually under that is a really small link that says we also have a free plan. And it might be worth checking out whether that covers everything you need for now, or whether the $12 one would be enough. unless you are on the business plan of Mighty Networks, you're not able technically to create courses. But what some people do is just they have all their course material in a subgroup rather than a course. And that's just as beautifully branded and easy to navigate, and people can access that from their phone. So I think if you're interested really in this like component of community building and having people to get to know each other as they are, I mean, thinking about content relating, that totally makes sense. Then I think Mighty Networks as a platform is something that I would consider long term. Okay. And if not, or if you find that it would be too expensive at this point to justify the plan with Mighty Networks that you need, then Teachable is the second best solution that I would be looking at, because they're taking care of VAT as well.
Got you. Yeah, because if I had a course within a subgroup, I wouldn't be able to, it would just be open access, wouldn't it? So I wouldn't be able to charge for it if it was there.
There's different works around solutions. So the one thing is you could have your whole Mighty Network could be secret, so that you're taking payments in some way outside of Mighty Networks, for example, through Shopify or however you like, or PayPal. And because it is then personal, you don't necessarily have to charge VAT. And so you can make it secret, and then you have a secret sign-up link. You take your payment, and then when someone has paid, they get a welcome email with the secret sign-up link for your Mighty Network. Another option would be, I'm not totally sure on which plan this applies, but you can also charge for access to specific subgroups, even if you don't have courses. So if you have all your content in a subgroup, you can just, your main Mighty Network could be free and open, and then people just pay for the group. That's another thing some people do for their freebie. So I have seen people have the whole Mighty Network free. And so they say, for example, each Monday they come in and they share like a video or live or a journaling prompt, something like that, like a small tool. And then people can engage with that. I think that's really cool. The only downside is that because it's free, you will inevitably get a lot of ghost people in there. So you might have like 300 people in there, but actually only 50 are engaged. And if you're looking to make that like a premium environment eventually, that could be a little bit annoying. But it can also be a really cool way of like getting people off social media and still having them be engaged in a group. And there is a lot of ways that you can schedule within Mighty Network. So for example, I post Monday journaling prompts each week, but they are all automated. So it will just come out each Monday, a new one, and then people respond to that.
Okay. That's really good to know. All right. Something, good to, I need to have a good think about that.
Yeah, there's so much to think about.
There is so much. Well, I can see we've come to our time.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful for this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. It was really, really good to talk to you. It's always kind of really good and refreshing and invigorating to me to see people beginning to think about these things and understand like what your thinking is and what kind of questions come up for you. That informs my work as well. So it was really great to talk to you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, how much do you charge for your hour-long one-to-ones?
I don't offer hour-long one work anymore because it was taking me a lot to kind of get in and out of people's headspace just for an hour. So I now have a 5-hour retainer, which is £290, and that's 5 hours that you can use in any way you like. It can be tech work or it can be consultations. You're welcome to have 10% off that. But I don't offer 1 hour consultations anymore.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool. I will send you the recording when I have it. Have a great day.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, bye. Bye.